Hi, my name is Sonia Cooper and I belong to the Yorta Yorta people, and I am here on Yorta Yorta country, and today I am making a video from Cummeragunja, a place dear to my people. I acknowledge my people, my ancestors, and I acknowledge the elders that I have worked with. I also would like to acknowledge other Indigenous people who are viewing this presentation today. I acknowledge your traditional country, your traditional practices, and I acknowledge you as a people. And I also acknowledge that we would have common struggles, in our fight for the protection of water, the protection of our knowledge, and the protection of country. This is Yorta Yorta country. This is Cummeragunja. Right now, Cummeragunja, part of Cummera has been evacuated due to all the water flows and the regulated flows that have happened here on the river they call the Murray River. That river is Dungala to us. I want to just have a bit of a yarn with you guys today. Really, it was just around, some of the things that I can see missing within our conversations of water here. One of the greatest things that I can see is that there is not much interest or care about water quality. There is care about water quality from a dissolved oxygen perspective, and from a water temperature perspective, and also from a salinity perspective. But when we start talking about water quality, in terms of, what water potentially can be, there is, and when I say that, I'll explain that, but I feel the conversations around water chemistry is almost next to nothing. One, nobody cares about what's happening with the quality of our water, and nobody cares too much about to have a conversation with traditional owners about what they care about. Yes, there is water engagement occurring within the basin, and there most certainly is a lot of consultation. Most people could say it could be overload of consultation or overload of engagement. I think the key thing is what is happening, after those conversations and after that engagement. For me, I feel sad when I look at the river. It makes my entire body feel kind of quite ill. When I think about the potential that water can have and it not achieving its potential, it saddens me even more so. When I say that kind of with a broken heart, because a lot of the water that we see should be H2O. But I think people are led to believe water is water. And yes, water is water, but this water that we see in Dungala, which is our mighty rivers, holds more than just water. It holds arsenic in its different forms. It holds lead, copper, zinc, chromium, and levels of aluminium that still haven't been tested against the regional values. Just because a table doesn't trigger water quality, so these guidelines around water quality, it doesn't trigger, any active changes to the way in which the water quality is within Dungala, I feel that's a missed opportunity for traditional owners to be involved in the water quality and water chemistry conversation. I feel these conversations, if you don't go out and test the water yourself, if you don't go out and do your own research by our people, for our people, then I feel that we could be misguided and misled into believing that water is water. Some of the other conversations that I've had actively, not only around water chemistry, is also about the soils in our country. I feel that the impacts of climate change, the impacts of regulated water, because water can only go to, on a lateral scale, can only reach a certain extent. I feel these conversations are very hard to have. For me, I think about this all the time, and for me, I talk to my people about water quality, and I scream out to governments, you're not doing enough about water quality. Water quality is tell us you want to give us some water, or you tell us that, we should be involved in these conversations around watering, But why would I water my country with chemicals that are going to kill my country? It's almost like it's something hidden amongst the conversation, or hidden amongst the idea to partnership. It's kind of like, why would I agree to destroy my country with all these chemicals? I too want to fight for the water quality of my country. And I want other traditional owners here in Australia to see the same thing. So I have been actively engaging within the Murray-Darling Basin and with other traditional owners around water quality and also soil and the importance that it holds. For me, I do sleep in the forest. So while I'm not sleeping in a traditional bark setting, I do live in a swag, and I do cook on country, and I do make my fires daily, and I do cook my feet on the fire, and I live and sleep on country, and I breathe. I feel it's not the best, but it's definitely good air. In terms of what I would normally get inside of a house. So for me, these interactions have been key to my fight for soil and water chemistry. I notice different things when I'm out in the forest. I notice that the trees are doing something different. We've got red gums, and these red gums, the very big old red gums, they talk about all of these species being the same species. I want to say that I feel that the red gums in my country, the very old red gums, is a standalone species. I feel like they can never be replicated again. And I feel that what's happening with the regulation of the waters is having a great impact to the big old trees. If the trees drop their seeds and the seeds grow, I feel like they're the subspecies of the original tree. I see when water goes over to the tree, that the trees can no longer sustain its position. These trees are having a great trouble standing up, and they lean. A lot of the trees lean. Like when you look in the forest, it's not something that's obvious, but once you are made aware of what's happening with our trees, they lean on an angle. They lean because of the winds. They lean mostly because the soils no longer can do what it used to do. So the ground in which we now stand is also at risk of water impacts. I don't think people understand the impacts that soil, if we don't have the soil, we can no longer do what we were meant to do. For me, having pure, clean water is probably not a thing of the past, but actually trying to do something about it, that's something different. You would expect governments and people to jump on board and with traditional owners and say, yes, we want to hear what you have to say, and we now want to work with you to really extract and bring out these ideas about not only what you have, but what traditional knowledge we can apply to these elements of what we want to talk about in terms of water quality and soil. That's not the only thing, but that's something that I've been on about for a long time now. My nan told me about water has a memory. And the water that's here now certainly has a memory, because it's going to wherever it used to be. Surely people could understand the way in which water moves. Water finds a level and water lives. I feel time and again in all the conversations that I have and everything that I do, the mandate is never to put traditional owners at the forefront, because we're always an afterthought for everything. And when I say an afterthought, they might still talk to us, but we're never really at the crunch time of, at that point in which they make a decision around the table. I always say time and again, the hearts and the minds that are at the table with us today are the right hearts and the right minds can absolutely make a difference to the way in which water is and the way in which it flows. I feel this in-channel business here within the Murray River is creating great impacts to us as a people. One, to utilise that water for the purposes that we would want it to be, whether it's for traditional purposes, sacred cultural purposes, or just to water the forest because it needs to be watered. Then I feel that there's a massive engagement breakdown. Once you recognise it the first time, it applies to all other times. and I feel that we still have a long way to go, and that I'm pretty sure that my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren and their children will be still fighting for the same thing I'm fighting for, which was the same thing my ancestors fought for. Well, this is no doubt this is a common struggle across not only traditional owners here in Australia, but indeed an Indigenous worldview. I didn't have enough time today to talk about everything else. I could sit here for hours and talk about a whole range of things with you guys. But just hearing this story and just thinking about water chemistry and thinking about soil and the impacts to traditional knowledge, at least it's a conversation that is in a culturally safe space. So thank you.